We have, yeah, a really fascinating one. You know, I guess in a way we're talking about a new game company. We're also talking about one of the longest standing game companies there are, you know, through my youth in the 80s and I guess in the early 90s, late in the 80s, first falling for games. And MicroProse was certainly around. I can see every detail of that logo with my eyes closed. You know, they've been a tremendous force throughout the history of games, and now they are back in a way. So you don't need me to tell you about this. Instead, we're absolutely honored, definitely a real veteran this time. JW Bill Stealy is here for our superstar session, a really exciting one. I'm trying to stay professional while getting all enthusiastic. But yeah, JW Bill Stealy is here from iEntertainment to talk about MicroProse then and now. So, Bill, if you are with us, here he comes, then I shall hand over to your good self. This should be a really insightful session. I think we can definitely say that Bill brings heaps of experience. So, I think just getting ready. Of course, if you want to share this or any of the sessions ongoing, then PGC Digital is the hashtag. This will be the close for lunch. I do want to highlight that at 1:15 there will be a yoga class. Why am I highlighting that? Because as well as a professional instructor, Chris James, the great-grandfather of Steel Media, will be joining that session. I think anyone who knows Chris knows Pocket Gamer and knows the games industry will want to see that, however they use it. Bill, can you turn your camera on? That seems to be the part we're missing. I'm getting your background screen.
Okay.
Ah, I can hear you. There he is.
1, 2, 3, 4. How we doing?
Absolutely fantastic. I can hear you. I can see you. You've gone outside on a lovely sunny day. Yes. So yeah, very briefly, in case anyone's just joined us, I'll stop talking because you definitely need to be listening to Bill and not myself. But yeah, very lucky to have JW Bill Stealy from iEntertainment for our super session talking about MicroProse then and now. So Bill, I shall stop talking and over to you. I greatly look forward to this one.
Well, thank you very much. Just say hello from beautiful Western North Carolina. That's where we're hiding. We're on top of a mountain, and as you can tell, I'm an aviator and a golfer. And if you can see that picture, you can see that there's a runway and there's the first tee. So beautiful place, beautiful community. It's a lot easier to hide on top of a mountain because you can still play golf and you can still go to the bar down there. And as long as you sit 6 feet apart, you can still have a beer. So great fun, and I appreciate this invite to come back and do this. I do have two people that are joining me. Sergio Costa is going to talk about the new games for MicroProse, and Fraser Nash is going to criticize me after this on how I could have done better. But I'm doing this because, well, it's nostalgia, of course. I started this game company in my basement, as our host said, 100 years ago. And we had a great run, and now we're going to have even a better run. And again, I'm only kind of helping the new MicroProse do this. I am the CEO of iEntertainment Network. It was located precisely 251.1 miles away from the original MicroProse, because that was the non-compete I signed when I let them take over the company. But we got a great future with the new MicroProse, and MicroProse is helping my company improve Warbirds with some great new graphics. And if you like some of those down there, those are some of the early screenshots. You know, I loved them all. I know that David and MicroProse are doing some games that look a whole lot like some of these games. But as we introduce David Leggetti to you and his team, you know, they started in games 100 years ago, almost as long ago as I did, and went to the military side doing real simulations, and they're coming back to games. So I think a lot of people have heard my story before. We didn't have a lot of money, so somebody put on their flight suit and their helmet and tried to sell games. As I told somebody yesterday, I can be John Staley, Wharton MBA, and try and sell games, or I can be Wild Bill, the fighter pilot, and sell games. And we had a lot of fun. Margarita or no margarita, we had a lot of fun. But I started out to be a fighter pilot. I went to the United States Air Force Academy. It's a university, and I got a degree in aeronautical engineering. Then when I left active duty after not being happy with the airplane they gave me, I went to the Wharton School, which is one of the finest business schools in America, to learn something about business, because nobody in my family had been in business. Military officers and poor farmers out in western Pennsylvania. I went through pilot training. I was near the top of my class. I got to be an instructor pilot. Then I went ahead and flew C-5As, and I did not want to be an airline pilot, so I went back to the National Guard and got to be a forward air controller, which meant I dropped a lot of bombs on the state of New Jersey, and the darn place is still here. I needed bigger bombs. While I was flying with the Guard, I worked for a number of consulting firms. McKinsey and Company is pretty well known. I came to Europe and spent a year in Amsterdam working for the Fokker Aircraft Company. Great fun. And after I left consulting, I went to General Instrument. Now, when I was in consulting as a financial guy, I did income statements, balance sheets, cash flows, all the things that our clients needed, basically to help them plan their business going forward. I went to General Instrument as director of business planning, strategic planning, and they're a computer company, but they wouldn't let me use any time sharing services. So I'm a smart, lazy guy, and I'd heard of this brand new program called VisiCalc, done by a friend of mine, Dan Bricklin, and I figured that was a spreadsheet that I could use and make all my spreadsheets. Because GI gave me a pack of number 2 pencils and some big green piece of paper and told me to do all those things for 5 divisions for 5 years with 5 assumptions, and then we'd redo it. And I figured that was a lot of writing when I could figure out how to do it in VisiCalc. So I went to buy one, and the first computer they showed me was black and gray. It was a Trash 80. And of course, that was the old Radio Shack computer, and it had 16K of memory. You get that 16K. Holy mackerel. And right next to it was a brown computer. It looked a little better than that black and gray thing. And it had some kind of fruit on it with a bite out of it. And it had 32K of memory. And right next to it, I heard explosions going off. And I looked over there and I said, what's that computer? He said, that's a toy computer. I said, does it do VisiCalc? He said, yes. And I said, and it does that great game, Star Raiders? He said, yes. I said, I'll take that one. So I bought myself an Atari 800. You can have 64K of memory if you put the basic cartridge in. And my former partner knew how to do the basic cartridge. So when I was back at GI, again, doing my spreadsheet, someone told me there was a users group in the back. And I went back to meet the guys in the users group, the Smuggers, Sid Meier's user group. And Sid, of course, was brilliant, but I thought he was a pirate. He told me he was not a pirate. He was just borrowing the games. Well, as an Air Force Academy graduate with an honor code, you can't just borrow games. Those were somebody's games. So I really didn't spend any time in their users group. But fast forward a couple months, and Sid and I were the only financial person, the only technical person in a meeting with a bunch of salesmen. And Sid and I were bored after 2 days to listen to them shoot the breeze and tell us how good they were going to be next year. And he says, Bill, I know where there's some games. Let's go do it. And we went downstairs, and he beat me at all the games. And then seeing a flying game, since I was flying this A-37 jet fighter, I said, okay, Sid, I'll beat you at this one. I sat down, scored 75,000 points. I was really excited about it. And Sid sat down and scored 150,000 points. I was not a happy fighter pilot. I said, how'd you do that? He said, I memorized the algorithms. I said, you did what? He said, I could write a better game in a week. And not to be outbragged, I said, well, I could sell it. And that brought me Hellcat Ace, our very first game. And I criticized it up one side and down the other and wrote a 4-page memo why it wasn't that good. And he walked away dejectedly. Came back about a month later, said, I fixed all those things. And we went off and started selling Hellcat Ace. And we had a great run early on. Hellcat Ace, Floyd of the Jungle, nobody's ever heard of, but my kids loved it. 4-player joystick. And Chopper Rescue, we sold to CBS. They never released it as far as I know. And then we went on. Sid learned to do line draw. He was still learning. Remember, he was not trained as a programmer. He was a systems analyst, but he was training himself, as many people in Europe did with the old Sir Clive Sinclair Z80 machines. But Line Drove brought us Solo Flight, Strike Eagle, Silent Service, Gunship Civilization, and over 200 more. And we took the company public in 1991. I think the thing that made MicroProse great among them is we had a great team. As you look on the left, that's the Red Baron machine that we sat down and he kicked my backside in. And hard to get Sid in a tie. This is one of the few pictures you'll ever see of Sid in a tie. Most of the time, Sid wears a Michigan t-shirt. And of course, I was trying to pretend we were a bigger company than we were, so I always wore a suit and a red tie with a white shirt all the time. But what it was is a team of guys. On the right there, if you can see it around my picture, the team of developers for Fleet Defender, a really bunch of good guys. And then one of the more famous stories is I figured we were doing flight simulators, so we needed an airplane. And I was down demoing flight simulators at an air show. And an airplane taxied by. And I went, wow, I used to fly that airplane. It was called an O2A. And I said, I'm going to go buy one. Well, right about then, a bigger airplane taxied by, and it was an airplane like the one on the bottom left here. So I called Sid and I said, Sid, I found an airplane for us. It's only $1 million and I'm going to buy it. And I hung up. He went berserk. What is that dumb guy thinking about? About 2 hours later, I called him back and said, Sid, we lost that airplane. I found one for $500,000 and I hung up. There was no cell phones back then. And about another 2 hours later, I said, Sid, we lost both of those. I found a really cheap old piece of junk for $125,000. He said, buy that one, buy that one. That's the one I wanted all along. You know, you got to be in the sales business. So what we had here was a great programmer, genius boy, and somebody who knew how to sell. That was me. But I didn't start out that way. I learned how to sell. And we bought that airplane and we took lots of people flying in it. And now the best is yet to come. We're going to launch a whole bunch of new games. And what I've tried to tell David Lucchetti and all the team at MicroProse, it is the spirit of MicroProse. And I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. They're also going to be technology. Again, David and his team come from the military world, and they've been doing military simulations for militaries around the world. And it's been very successful. It's how he can afford to buy all these games that he's working on. They're going to be single and multiplayer. And then what I think one of the things is the players will want them all. So I was trying to determine what the spirit of MicroProse was, because one, we had a great team. Two, we were having great fun. Three, everybody in the company played our own games. I do brag that I think I played more of our games than anybody else, because I'd work and do the business in a day, and I'd spend 5 or 6 hours every night testing whatever game we were working on. But this is from a smarty pants who was a interviewer. Not all of this is complimentary, but it is on the web. The Ballad of Sid and Wild Bill. And his point was fun was a component of MicroProse games. One overlooked by too many competitors. Too many people wanted to do great art. Well, art is nice. We all like art. We want it to look good. But what we want to do is have fun. So we really never thought we were going to be able to simulate an F-15, although I did hire 2 F-15 pilots to help us with that, or a submarine in silent service. But it was a balance of playability and fun. It gave the player the feeling of really being there. So I thought this was a great quote. I pulled it up just so we can say the spirit of MicroProse was have fun both in making games and selling games and playing games. And Sid had a theory. And he said we needed to make games that required decisions with limited information, with their time critical, with significant outcomes, and then reward the player that does that. That was the key to great games at MicroProse. So in the subject matter, most of the early military games were because I requested those. Most of the strategy games was because Sid and a bunch of guys in the back played board games all the time, and Sid loved the strategy games. And the Command series came from me watching a bunch of U.S. Army officers move little men around on a paper mache model of the Fulda Gap, and that's how we did the Command series. And Sid loved that, and then he started doing more of the strategy games. And I'm not going to have time to tell you, but 2 of them came from Avalon Hill board games. So military and strategy, Sid and Bill. Fast playability. We jumped into F-15 Strike Eagle, and the first thing he did was blow up something, just launch and blow up something. And we want you to accomplish small objectives and going on to bigger things. We wanted to feel like you were really accomplishing things. And we wanted to thank you, and you do great stuff. So fun, and we put high score screens early in most of the games, and unfortunately, you know who was on the top of those high score screens? Me. So loved it. So this is out of F-19. If you had a good mission, just like when I was in the Air Force, you'd get out there and you go to the bar and all the guys would buy you beer. If you had a bad mission, you'd be sitting in that bar by yourself and the bartender would be on the other end of the bar. So this is how we try to have fun and reward the players right at the very beginning. And I wish I didn't block up David's picture. He doesn't like to show his picture. I don't know why. He's a very accomplished guy, but I'll give you a little bit of this. He started programming when he was a kid, and he went off to be an air conditioning mechanic, but he was still programming. And we've got some pictures of his early cockpits that he built when he was 19. And he started flying ultralight airplanes. So he was always interested in that. And then he did music. He was a singer. He was in a band. And then he did art. And then he started working on games himself. And as he was going along, he learned more and more about programming, and eventually built the 3D system that virtual battle systems used. So he's a brilliant guy who didn't think he was brilliant. He just was. So he then said, let's get into the serious business of simulations. He started these defense companies. They're going very well. I just went to a defense show with him, and 15 defense contractors were all using his 3D software. The guy's brilliant. He's not that good a golfer because I'm the only one that didn't lose balls when we went playing, and most of him and his other guys lost 2 balls a hole. But we had fun, and they're going to have fun. And the first new MicroProse games are coming out in the fall of 2020. We've already announced a few of them. But look at this. This is art. He has nothing to do. Wait a minute. He's CEO of 3 or 4 companies. He likes to do art, and these are all some of his concept for games. I'm sure you can guess what games those are. But he draws this, and this is how he thinks about games. And of course, many of those come from our early MicroProse games. Then you're lucky because now we're going to bring Sergio in. Sergio is a development manager. He's been in the game industry for a long time. He's way more handsome than me, which I don't like, and he actually has a better screenshot than I do. But he's been around MicroProse since 2019 and around games forever. And Sergio's going to tell you about the new games. And I went a little faster, Sergio, so you get a little more time there, handsome.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for having me here. I'll probably just share my screen now, Bill, and
Okay.
I'll go back to. I'll get the control back to you in a second. Let me just. Okay, here we go. Let me just see if this is working.
It seems to be working. I can see it.
Yes, it's working. So yes, MicroProse has a huge and amazing story with Bill and Sid, and we are extremely happy to have the company working again and having Bill with us at our side. So what we are doing here today is talking about the past. Oh, sorry, we're talking about the past of what MicroProse was and what MicroProse is going to be. And we are bringing 4 new games right out of the box, the 4 new games that we have announced recently. One of them is Sea Power. And Sea Power is a real-time combat game in the Cold War era with over 50 original ships and 30 original aircraft that were on service since during the 60s and up to the 1980s. It's going to cover theaters such as the North Atlantic, Persian Gulf, Gulf of Tonkin, and the Mediterranean Sea. And the players will be able to play a dynamic campaign. Now, remember, guys, one of the things that people have loved a lot and loved most about one of the last games that MicroProse released, if you remember correctly, it was Falcon 4, was the fact that players were able to play a dynamic campaign where the AI was checking everything and looking into everything and responding accordingly to what you were doing. And this is exactly what Sea Power will allow you to do as well. The AI will be behind, on the background, getting to know everything that you're doing and just reacting to what you do, changing the battleground and getting into more problems if you are not careful enough. But we will also be able to play both historical and fictional single scenarios. So it's not just about the campaign. We have other things for you to play as well. All this with an advanced flight and ship physics and malfunctions. So this means that aircraft and ships will behave accordingly to what they do in real life, right? No crazy stuff going on the air and on the sea. Everything will work according to physics, and weapons can malfunction or misfire. So if you are sending a few aircraft or a ship or and units to do something, just keep in mind that whenever that ship fires or whenever that aircraft fires, things may not go well for you. Also,
okay, I got a couple comments, Sergio.
yeah, go ahead.
Landing on a carrier is not easy. In the Air Force, we were really glad that the runway went 10,000 feet and it sat still while you were trying to land on it. So I can't wait. We have done simulators landing on carriers before, and most players take about 3 weeks to learn to land on the carrier. So they fly the mission and they jump out. So it's pretty fun. And then you notice they got the F-14s on the cannon. Those are swing wing things. We had a swing wing thing in the United States Air Force, and it was called the FB-111. And basically, the only thing it was worth is to paint it yellow and use it for a ground power unit. But the F-14s did very well for the Navy. So this is a single-player game going to a multiplayer. We're going to launch, I believe, Sergio, a single-player version, and then we'll come back with a multiplayer version. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm excited about these.
It's okay. Well, you'll be even more excited to know that you can play as both the U.S. and Russia right off the bat. So
okay,
yeah.
I guess I'll know which side I'm going to play. Okay.
Yes, of course. Yes, but a lot of people have asked us if if it would be possible to play as the opposing force, as the red force. Yes, it will be possible for you to play as the opposing force as well. So that's great news. And yes, you are right. It's very hard to land on an aircraft carrier. Fortunately, I think the AI will be able to do that. So let us just let them do their thing. Also, something very cool is the post-battle replay. So you will be able to see everything that happened, where everything went well, and where everything went wrong. So you can actually learn from your mistakes while watching what unfolded and try to do better the next time. Of course, all this in an absolutely fantastic, very rich, very detailed 3D world with dynamic time of day and weather, real world terrain. So we're copying the real world terrain into the game, and you'll of course even have land facilities. So although this is a naval based game, you'll have stuff on the ground for you to just bomb and do your thing, right?
And if they haven't seen the video, it's pretty impressive. It's on the MicroProse site.
Yeah, just go to microprose.com and we have all the videos there. I don't know about you, but Bill, but every time I see these trailers, it's like I'm watching a trailer of a movie, right? It's not like a trailer of a game. It's just fantastic. It's just
the graphics are good, but to play, we've got to make sure it's fun. And I get to test this one, so I can say as soon as David gets me the first version, I'll let him know if we need a deck gun on that submarine.
Yeah, oh, the deck gun. I'm sure you have your deck gun for sure.
That was a big fight between MicroProse, between Sid and I on deck guns in silent service. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I know, no, it's okay. I know that story, but you're right, Bill. Games have to be fun, and we have been. It's something that we at MicroProse are also fighting and trying to do. It's not just about, we're talking about technical things here. We talk about, amazing 3D world and advanced physics. Yeah, but it's not just about the technical things. It's about the game. It's about having fun. It's about getting the player to experience all this and get immersed in the game. That's what counts more than all the technical stuff. We can have.
And I want to get rank and get medals too, so don't forget me.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, we will take care of you. Don't worry. We'll take care of you for sure. Now, next game. Now, this this can look a bit odd. I'm going to be honest with you. When I first looked at screenshots from this game, I was, this looks so almost childish. But yeah, I started reading about the game and I start, understanding what the game was and what was behind it. And I tried it as an internal build, and it's just fantastic. It's a turn-based strategy game. Yeah, go ahead, Bill. Go ahead.
This is the kind Sid and the guys played in the back. They played board games. And this is basically a board game came to the computer world, which is exactly what Railroad Tycoon and Civilization were. And you know how well they turned out. So I'll be quiet, but I'm excited about playing this one, even if it is Army.
I've heard that we're going to have some air units as well. So
Oh, good.
yeah, it's not an actual Air Force, but we are having some air units as well. So at least we'll be able to do some close air support and protect the troops on the ground, right? So that's something we can do. And yeah, you're right. It's pretty much a board game. It's a turn-based strategy game in World War II, right? And of course, as opposed to a real-time game, things happen in succession. So you have time to think about your next moves, but you need to be very careful about your next moves, and I'll tell you why in a second. It's a game that will be spent throughout 1936 until 1954, and you'll be able to play initially as the United States of America, Germany, or Russia. We are planning to have more countries in the future, and also more scenery in the future. Right now, we are going to play on this kind of European background, but we will have things like desert or jungle or other areas as well. Now, remember me telling you that you'll have time to think on your next moves? Well, you need to be very careful because there's an advanced AI that Extra, the company behind Second Front, has baptized as Gretchen. And Gretchen, let me tell you, she is ruthless. She hates us. She hates our dog. She hates our cat. She hates our family and our neighbors. And
I dated her in college.
I'm sure you did. Well, you know Gretchen then. She is ruthless, and she will try to just bite you and shred it. It's amazing. Yeah, the Extra is doing an amazing job with it. We also have several types of complex units. It's not just about infantry or about armors or about all the trucks. For example, the turrets and the hulls rotate independently. There are some complexity behind it. When, for example, you actually point a cannon to a target, you'll get better aim. You can close and shut down the hatch so that you can have a better aim as well. There are a lot of things going around and a lot of different behaviors. For example, if you burn something up, you can see on the screenshot a piece of the forest, a unit burning. Fire will actually spread to the side and get into the trees, and the wind will blow accordingly to the direction of the wind. Now, smoke actually prevents you from seeing things behind it. You will lose line of sight. So units can actually hide behind smoke and behind other things, which can really be somewhat of a pickle for you because Gretchen will know how to use it. So
you have 3 minutes to do the next two games, young man. So as much as I like this, we need to move.
I'm on it. So you have a ground system that allows you to have cover, line of sight, etc., etc. Everything is very complex. It's not as simple as the graphics seem like. It's very complex. Okay. Another one that we have is Task Force Admiral, which is a real-time naval admiral simulator, different from the first one that we saw, Sea Power, in the sense that we are commanding not the units themselves, but we are providing orders to, we are taking decisions and send out orders so that the units will carry out the plan that we have established. It's a creative blend of 1942 Pacific Air Wars, carriers at war, and radio commanders, and relying on a natural and intuitive mechanic. Okay, it's a fully 3D simulated environment. So again, very rich in terms of detail and what you are seeing as you are playing. It's technology limited in the sense, not in the sense that the game is limited by itself, but in the fact that you are limited to the technology that was used back then. So you will have fog of war. You may not know what's happening in front of you. You may not know what your units are going through. You have tons and tons of different units for you to play with. It's you have over 40 plane types, over 90 ship types. So it's
and the airplanes can get on the deck most of the time because they're controlled by the AI.
Yes, and the AI does an excellent job at fighting themselves, and it's just uncanny. I've been some internal builds, and it's awesome. It's really awesome. And I know our time is almost finishing here. I want to finish with the actual first MicroProse developed product that we announced, which is the Mighty Eighth. And the Mighty Eighth, we want the Mighty Eighth to be not just a game, but an experience in both VR and non-VR. So we'll be catering both sides of the fences. We know how important VR is today. We know that it's growing. We know that people want to be more immersed in VR. So we have that for people that want to get into VR. But we also have the non-VR version with all the care that we are getting into the VR as well. You'll be able to play with 9 other friends inside the bomber, be it the B-17, which you can see here, but also the second one that will come right out of the box on the first release, which is the B-24. So you're going to experience everything that is to live inside these bombers with the crew, be it an AI crew or with other guys, with other friends inside these bombers. You will go through hell and back with these guys to do your job as a bomber inside this amazingly well-rendered B-17 and B-24. That's just look at the screenshots.
And folks can look it up, but we lost more air crews in World War II, B-17s, B-24s, B-25s, than we did ground forces, because it was dangerous to go fly these airplanes, which my dad did. We need to wrap it up. Sergio, you're good. I don't like it that you're handsomer than me. Go to the next slide, please.
Yeah, here we go.
There's the website, and Mr. Sergio's really been big and making all that work and posting things. There's some great comments and great questions about some of the old games, and sometimes I pop in there and make too much comments, but I'll try not to do it, Sergio. I'm sorry.
Next. No, just do it. We love your comments. We love your comments, Bill.
We got a lot of
Please do it.
David Ligeti is our CEO. I'm still iEntertainment. We're a small public company. I'm trying to do something about that. There's Sergio's contact. David is doing marketing for MicroProse, and there's Frazier, who's listening, and he will critique me for talking too much during this one. So go to the next slide. There you go. If you ask your question, you better be ready for the response. Are we ready to take any questions? I can't hear him. Can you?
Sorry, I forgot about what muting a microphone is. Honestly, I work in technology industries. Yes, we've got time for a couple. Strictly, we're out of time, but you don't get people like Bill and Sergio on the line too often. So let's overrun. Why not? It is lunch break after this, so we're not eating into anyone's session. Our dear audience have already fired some questions our way. There's a Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom link, so you might be able to squeeze one in if you're quick. I'm going to start with, and I guess this, well, you guys can choose to answer this. Was there a particular moment that made you want to start creating games as MicroProse again? Either of you want to dive in there?
Well, I didn't want to start MicroProse again because we've been there, done that. But I heard someone said, "Hey, Bill, I heard you're starting MicroProse again." I said, "I am. I'm trying to go on the PGA Tour and be a great golfer." And they said, "No, but I see your name on a website." And I got a hold of David and said, "Hey, what are you doing? Don't you owe me a royalty for putting my name on the website?" He says, "No, I'm going to give you a chance to do this all over again." I said, "Okay." And then some of the games he was going to do, and I said, "I'll help you, and you can help me with my Warbirds game." And he agreed to do that. So he's going to help us put a brand new graphic system in Warbirds, and I'm going to help him make all his games better. Good partnership as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, well, for the rest of the team, the guys that are new into MicroProse, I think we've been wanting to do these MicroProse games since forever, right? It was a dream when I was back in the 2000s or in the 80s or 90s to just work for MicroProse and do games for MicroProse. So, and I know David feels the same, and that's why he started looking into MicroProse and all the IPs and tried to do this. For the guys that are now working for MicroProse, yeah, Bill just wants to go golf because he has done that. We want to do that. We want to get that spirit back again and do all this. It's a dream. It's a dream for most of us.
And they were only 2 when I was already a major in the Air Force. So there you go.
Yeah, you know, I'll go to the question that follows on nicely from what you were saying, Sergio, because you know, I feel the same, right? Like, Microsoft is profoundly meaningful to people that grew up with games.
MicroProse. No, that he was
Oh,
$1 billion Bill. I was $1.98 Bill. Come on.
You're the
Nice
yeah,
try.
don't worry, I
Different
can't
bills
believe
there.
I did.
Different bills there.
I
It's
can't
happened.
believe I made that mistake. Your
Wait a
work,
minute,
Bill,
I got Bill Gates a date, so let's be nice. I got him a date when nobody else would sit with him at a conference we went to.
you were the technology Bill that had more impact on my life in the 80s and 90s, Mr. Stealy.
It seemed to turn out okay, Will.
yeah. And I've got a son named Sid who, but I promise I didn't name him after that co-founder of yours. Yes. So someone's saying loving these old MicroProse stories. And someone mentioned the stunt car racer and Grand Prix games were groundbreaking. You know, I think they didn't feel
Jeff Crammon.
It didn't feel profound as just games. They were profound moments in gamers' lives because it felt like a taste of where things were going. How did those particular driving games come about? And I guess I'll add to that question, you know, why do you think they had such an impact?
Well, they were early. They were land-based. Jeff Crammon did a great job. If you saw his first game, it looked like a roller coaster with a car going over it. And later he came up with Grand Prix, and he was brilliant. I don't know that he had ever sat and talked about it, but this came out of our UK office. And not everything that came out of our UK office was as brilliant as that, but they were good people. And we started the company in Tetbury, England. And I go, why the heck are we in Tetbury? And my managing director says, it's the software distribution capital of Europe. I said, really? Why is that? He says, because we're here. They did a good job. They had 300 people. The problem was the T-girls all kept marrying all the programmers. We kept losing T-girls. So, you know, we had to start over every year. But it was great fun. And Tetbury, we were the biggest high-tech company in Tetbury. We were the only high-tech company in Tetbury, England. But we had a great time. I enjoyed learning to play Skittles.
Right, that version of Skittles. I think the type that's played out the back of a pub, right?
Yes, sir. And with some drinking involved. Won't say that, but there was a fair amount of that, too.
Well, there's a very old school piece of game design with that version of Skittles. Didn't expect to be talking about that today. And that person does also ask what happened to Jeff Crammond, as you mentioned his name. Do you want to tackle that one?
I don't know what's happened to Jeff, but if I can find him, he's almost as old as I am. We ought to do another game. So, you know, that's a good thing. I am really good at finding people, especially ex-programmers. I now have 3 of the guys that built 3 of our best games all tell me they got another good idea. So I'm going to introduce them to David and off they'll go.
Fantastic. Well, considering the time, we better make that our last question. But just thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bill.
My handicap is very big, so you owe me strokes, but we'll play $100 a hole. The guy assessed my handicap.
Oh, that's just popped up. Right, there you go. I don't know enough about golf to comment on that one, so I'll leave that to you, Bill. I grew up next to a golf course. I promise I never caused any trouble there as a teenager. But we better move away from that. Bill and Sergio, thank you so much for sharing your story and new games, for giving us that time. You know, I know the effort in preparing these things. It's not just about when you turn up. It was, you know, fascinating, entertaining, a brilliant story. And, you know, I look forward to playing MicroProse games again. And I hope I never misname.
You got that one right.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say, I hope I never misname an iconic gaming company in front of the co-founding game industry icon.
I still have guns on my airplane.
Well, I think you'll be hearing so much of MicroProse in the future that you will never make that mistake again. You'll say that word a lot.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. And yeah, I have heard of Mr. Fraser Nash, so I'm sure I'll hear from him. Right, guys. Yeah. Well, I'll leave you to go and get on with your days. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing what MicroProse has for us. And thanks again for your time, chat.